Hello, folks. We are starting the webinar now. Once again, this is Robin here from Zoho. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar on e-invoicing. Before we get started with the webinar, some general housekeeping stuff on our webinar platform, Zoho Showtime. On your left pane, you can see questions, polls, and chats tab. If you have any questions on e-invoicing, you can ask your question over there to us or to Preetham sir, and we'll be glad to help you out with that. And if you currently I've run some polls. If you have not participated in the polls, please participate in the polls. If you would like to tell us anything, please use the chat tab to inform us about anything, be it audio issue or video issue. We'll help you sort it through. One more thing that you need to importantly notice: please do not ask your questions in the chat tab. Please ask it in the questions tab. This helps us consolidate all the questions and answers to you at the end of the session. One more final thing. If you face any technical difficulties, kindly refresh your browser using Control R or Command R for a soft refresh. If you're still facing an issue, please do a hard refresh of Command Shift R or Control Shift R. This should most likely solve all your issues. Now, before we start our webinar, e-invoicing in Zoho products. E-invoicing will be available in Zoho Books, Zoho Invoice, Zoho Inventory, and Zoho Subscriptions from October 1st. We will have a follow-up session after Preetham sir speaks to give you a demo of how e-invoicing works in Zoho Books. In this session on e-invoicing, CA Preetham Mohre will explain why e-invoicing is preferred by governments globally, how it is being mandated in India, for which segment it is applicable, what the process of e-invoicing is, what are the modes of generation, entities that are likely to be affected by e-invoicing. We will also see how e-invoice the registration portal, which is IRP, works, how IRN and QR code work together, and finally schema and content of an e-invoice. We wrap up the session with some of the challenges that will impact the businesses and a small demo on how e-invoicing would work in Zoho Books by our product expert Gayatri, and then address some of the frequently asked questions on e-invoicing as well. About the speaker of the session, CA Preetham Mohre has worked extensively on Indian GST and Gulf VAT. His journey to disseminate knowledge on GST started in 2009, and since then he addressed more than 200 trainings for more than 10 key trade bodies in India, trained more than 20,000 professionals and 5,000 government officials, and has been 15 free books on GST and how to be future-proof.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, sir. 1 second, sir. I think I can pass on the control to you, sir, now.
Yes, please. Hello.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes. So can you see me?
No, sir.
So I have turned on the video as well as audio.
Yes, sir. Now I can see you, sir. I hope everybody can see, sir. And is it audible?
Perfect. So let's get started.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thanks, Robin, and we are thankful to Team Zoho for giving us this wonderful opportunity to share our views on e-invoicing in India. We are also extremely thankful to all the participants who are joining in large numbers today. So friends, I think all of you are aware that since 1st of July 2017, when GST was introduced in India, we have seen changes from two perspectives. One change was happening on the law side, that is, all the time the act, rules, regulations, circulars, notifications, they were changing the GST legislation in India. But at the same time, even on the technological front, there were continuous and kind of changes which were taking place. Be it in the initial days, moving from GSTR 1 to 3, we initiated with GSTR 1 and 3B. After that, there was some technical challenges with respect to, I think all of you are aware, TRAN 1. After that, the government introduced the concept of invoice matching. Subsequently, from 1st of April 2018, the e-way bill concept was introduced. After that, in 2019-20, the government in the month of October introduced this concept of restriction under Rule 36 of Clause 4 by way of 20% earlier, which was reduced to 10% subsequently. And in 2020 January, the government said, let us start even with now e-invoicing. Now, initially, it was thought that from 1st of January it would be applicable on a voluntary basis. However, because of various challenges, even because to some extent GSTN was not ready and neither the taxpayer, the government postponed it to 1st of October, as all of you are aware now. Now, when you look at this date of 1st of October and when we look at today, 26th, I think we are just away 3 to 4 days away. And if you deduct Saturday, Sunday, then just 1 to 2 working days are left. So that's where it is not the right time for all of us to discuss whether it would be further postponed or not. Rather, we should be always now thinking that we should be prepared for e-invoicing. If it get postponed, it's still we are prepared. If doesn't get postponed, till we are prepared. And that's the reason right now our thought process should not be about postponement, but rather preparation for e-invoicing. Friends, as all of you are aware that typically e-invoicing doesn't mean conversion of normal invoice into PDF. It simply rather means that you are communicating or sharing with the government a particular data or schema in a particular schema or format. So basically, why the governments across the world are preferring e-invoicing? The reason is that world over, the government has seen that there is huge tax evasion which is taking place in indirect taxes. And I think all of you are aware that if you do a detailed survey, you will be able to understand that more than 20% of the tax collection of all the governments across the world comes from indirect taxes. And because there is a large scale evasion, the government now wants a real time data of all the invoices which are being raised by the taxpayer. And why this data is required? Because once you submit the data on real time basis, it is a bit difficult for the taxpayer that you can make changes. And even if you are making any changes in those documents subsequently, then practically the government will be able to be know about the same. And that's the reason the government wants it on a real time basis. Additionally, if you submit only PDF copies of the invoice, practically these documents should not be machine readable, and that's the reason the government is asking us to submit the data in the format in which the government machinery understands, so that once we submit the data, the government can use its data analytics tool to do the various number crunching, and then they can come out with various methodologies through which they can identify if there is any modus operandi to evade taxes. And that's the reason the government across the world are preferring e-invoices. When you look at e-invoicing as a concept, not only in a country like South Korea, Germany, but also in European Union, this concept is being proposed that they need to have e-invoicing in place. But friends, when you compare this e-invoicing concept globally, which is there with Indian concept, then you will be able to realize that world over, substantial amount of time was given to the taxpayer to be ready or prepared for e-invoicing. For example, in South Korea, more than 3 years time was given for doing transition to e-invoicing. But in India, because I think we always want to get things done at the earliest, we are just giving, not I would say not more than 2 months time, because on 30th July the revised schema was put in the public domain, and immediately on 1st of October we are planning to introduce e-invoicing. So just 2 months time we are given for the taxpayer. That is to some extent a bit lesser time as compared to the global standards. Additionally, although e-invoicing, there is a huge discussion which is taking place across India right now on e-invoicing. We need to understand, friend, that even globally, this concept of even e-invoicing is prevalent. But if you look at or compare the number of invoices which are being raised globally, only 10% of the invoices are raised in e-invoicing format. Almost all other invoices are raised in normal formats only. Now, naturally, the question which will come to your mind would be why the government wants to get into the invoicing part of a business. Why they can't restrict themselves from indirect tax perspective to GST returns? Why they don't introduce new GST returns? Why they are not focusing on that? Why they have scrapped new GST returns and they are focusing on e-invoicing now? Friends, one of the reason for that, I think all of you will agree that if you want to understand a particular business, a company, what you need to see, you just need to focus on their outward supply bills and you need to focus on their inward supply bills. That is, you just look at their sales bill and their purchase bills, or sales invoices and purchase invoices, and practically you'll be able to understand what that company is doing. Means what is their business? Are they trading business? Are they providing services? What is their margin? So substantial amount of data or understanding you can literally gather only from invoices, and that's what the government want to do. They want to catch hold of this pulse of the business, that is invoices, and that's where the government is now pushing for e-invoicing in India. Now, when you talk about e-invoicing, we need to understand that to introduce e-invoicing in India, not only we have to amend certain legal provisions in the act and rules by way of notification, but also we have to have appropriate e-invoicing website or portal also in place. And that's the reason you have e-invoice1.gst.gov as a gov.in as a portal, and there are various changes which the government has proposed in the act rules by way of various notifications. Friends, as a basics, I think all of you are aware that when we want to understand the concept of invoicing, we need to understand basically what is an invoice. As all of you are aware that under Section 31, every taxable supplier, basically every person who is making a taxable supply, is expected to issue an invoice. So you are making either supply of goods or service or both. So you are expected to issue an invoice to that person. But at the same time, now the government is saying by way of amendment in the Rule 48, they are saying not only you are expected to issue an invoice to the taxpayer, that is the customer, but at the same time this invoice should be issued in a prescribed manner. That is how you should issue an invoice, how the manner of issuance of invoice should be, that is also being prescribed to the taxpayer now. Correct? And what the government is saying, that there is a particular form known as form GST Inv 01. So you have to submit this form. You have to submit certain details in this particular form on the electronic portal, that is e-invoice website which you talked about. And after that, you will be able to get a IRN number and QR code. And subsequently, you will be able to issue that particular invoice to your customer. Friends, please note under Rule 48 subclass 5, the government has specifically mentioned now that if e-invoicing is applicable to you, and we are going to discuss to whom it is applicable, but at a subsequent stage. But please note that if e-invoicing is applicable to you, and if you issue a normal invoice, that is, you are not issuing an e-invoice, then practically the rule says that the document which you are issuing will not be considered as invoice itself. Then you will say, what is the implication? Friend, the implication would be severe for your recipient, and particularly if the recipient is a B2B customer. Because in case of recipient, section 16 subclass 2 talks about the fact that a person can claim input tax credit only if he is in possession of a tax invoice. If the document which is issued by you to the customer, if it is not considered as a tax invoice only, then even the recipient's right to claim input tax credit can get jeopardized. And that's the reason you need to be a bit careful when you are talking about e-invoicing. And we are going to understand basically in the next few slides to whom it is applicable and what precautions all of us can take. But before we discuss that, we need to first understand to whom this concept of e-invoicing is not applicable. Friends, the government, as an initial relaxation measure, have given certain exemptions, or they have given some relaxation to some of the taxpayers. And the taxpayer or the businesses which the government has given exemptions to these specific entities are a SEZ unit, a insurer, a banking company, financial institution, NBFC, GTA service provider, passenger transport service provider, a company like multiplex entity. So all these entities are practically exempted from the provisions of e-invoicing irrespective of their turnover. So irrespective of your turnover, if you are into these businesses, practically you are not expected to comply with e-invoicing provisions. With respect to this exemption, we need to understand that when we talk about SEZ unit, the exemption is only given to SEZ unit and it is not applicable to SEZ developer. That means for a SEZ developer, e-invoicing concept is applicable. At the same time, if the banking company, because the exemption is given to a banking company, if the banking company is also in the business of renting up immovable property, there has been a clarification which is issued by GSTN, and it has been clarified that the exemption is given for e-invoicing, and this exemption is qua the entity and it is not qua the business. That means any business which the banking company is carrying on, for that entire businesses, this exemption would be applicable. But friends, be a bit cautious in case as a banking company or insurance company, if you are into multiple businesses, it is much better for you to comply with e-invoicing, because tomorrow if there can be an alternate legal interpretation, certainly it is going to create challenges for the taxpayer, and that's the reason it is better to be cautious. Friends, now let us understand to whom the e-invoicing concept is applicable. As all of you are aware, this e-invoicing concept is applicable from 1st of October 2020 to a business whose aggregate turnover is more than 500 crore. So let us take an example that if somebody's turnover is only 300 crore, so whether e-invoicing as a concept would be applicable to them, practically the answer is no. Correct? Let us take another example. Somebody's turnover is say 475 crore. Whether e-invoicing concept is applicable to them or not. So, friends, before we come to a conclusion whether it is applicable or not, we need to first understand what is the meaning of the term aggregate turnover. For the GST law, aggregate turnover is a separate concept one cannot say that the turnover as per financial is the aggregate turnover, correct? Because under the GST law, even supplies which are made to the same PAN number, correct? That is, supplies made to your distinct person, they are also need to be considered for the purpose of calculating the turnover, that is aggregate turnover. But for the financial purposes, typically you will only record in the financial sales which are made to third party, correct, customers, and not to your own distinct person. And that is the reason, if your financial turnover is only 475 crore rupees, but at the same time if you have made 50 crore worth supplies to your interstate supplies to another branch of your own, then practically your turnover for GST purpose would be 475 plus 50 crore, that is 525 crore rupees. And that's the reason e-invoicing concept could become applicable to you. Friends, one good thing which GSTN has done is basically they have sent an email based on the turnover of various companies, which is as appearing based on the GSTR 3B data. They already sent email to almost all the taxpayers to whom e-invoicing concept is applicable, and they have already requested them by way of email to be compliant with e-invoicing provisions. But at the same time, we would like to caution you that in certain cases we found out that some of the taxpayer received the email, but this email was in their junk or spam folder. So please check your junk or spam folder to see whether such kind of email is being received to you. Additionally, if you are not received the email, correct, that doesn't mean e-invoicing is not applicable to you. To understand whether e-invoicing is applicable to you or not, you need to do a self assessment, correct? So you need to understand your turnover, refer to the aggregate turnover definition which we just discussed, and understand, calculate your turnover, and then take a call. In case, and recently we came across one of the such situation, in case you are having a doubt, for example, in one of our client case, the turnover was 490 crore after doing all the calculation, and they had a doubt should they go for e-invoicing or not. Then practically they took a decision that it is much better for us to go for e-invoicing, and subsequently they found out there was some turnover of around 30 crore which was not reflected in the financials, correct, because it was being netted off, or it might be in the debit note related transaction. And that's the reason it is much better, if you are having doubt whether e-invoicing is applicable or not, and you are on this border line of applying or not to applying, I think it is much better for you to go ahead with e-invoicing, because subsequently if you found out that e-invoicing was applicable and you did not apply, I think it is going to create challenges for your recipient customer. Friends, with respect to e-invoicing, I think all of you are aware that in case you would like to understand whether e-invoicing enablement has happened or not for you, you can go to the website which we have mentioned, and you can check there also by mentioning your GSTIN. In case e-invoicing enablement has not happened to you, you can request this e-invoicing team to, and we have given email ID also for the same, and you can send an email to them to by requesting to request them to enable e-invoicing enablement for you. Now, friends, next question which will come to your mind is basically who is going to get impacted because of e-invoicing. So, as we discussed, all the entities whose turnover is more than 500 crore, they are going to get impacted. If you do a pan level analysis, you will be able to understand that there are more than 7,500 taxpayers in India who are expected to do compliance with e-invoicing in India. At the same time, if you look at GSTN base, then it is more than 48,000, that is around 50,000 taxpayers are going to get impacted because of e-invoicing. Now, all of you will say these are the very small taxpayers, because where the number of GST taxpayers who are registered in India is more than 125 crore. 1.25 crore taxpayers are already registered. Then we are here only talking about around 50,000 taxpayers. So why we are pushing as a country for e-invoicing if it is applicable to so small taxpayer base? So friends, please note, although the number of taxpayers are very small, but practically more than 45% of the tax collection happens from this just 1.1% taxpayer. That is the people who are above, that is the companies who are above 500 crore. And also we need to understand that this is just a start. The government is just starting with 500 crore, correct? In the days to come, in the months to come, the government, once this schema format, everything settles down, they will make it applicable even to the smallest possible company. That is, even to a company who might be just having 1, 2, 3 crore turnover, correct? It might be made applicable even to them. But at the same time, all of us as a recipient of B2B invoices, we need to understand that even if as a company, my turnover may not be more than 500 crore, but still e-invoicing is going to impact me as a buyer. And why it is going to impact me? Because as we discussed, Rule 48 subclass 5 says that every buyer who is intending to claim the credit, he needs to check practically whether the supplier is required to issue e-invoice or not, correct? And that's the reason all of you need to do a detailed due diligence with respect to your vendor and check whether they are expected to issue e-invoices or not. And we are going to discuss that obviously, but at a later stage. So, friends, the next question which will come to your mind would be that if e-invoicing is applicable to me, which are the documents which I am expected to issue under e-invoicing concept? So, under the e-invoicing concept, we are expected to issue three documents. That is, we are expected to issue a e-invoice, e-credit note, and e-debit note from 1st of October 2020. These are the three documents which are expected to issue under e-invoicing concept. Please note, if you are supplier of like say some exempted product, correct, wherein bill of supplies is required to be issued, or in case of ISD, or in case of delivery challan, job work challan, e-invoicing concept is not applicable. So you will say never ever this concept will e-invoicing concept will apply to bill of supply, delivery challan, job work challan. The answer is no. Maybe in days to come, once invoices, debit note, credit note settles down, the government may even ask you to issue all the document which are issued under GST law under the concept of e-invoicing, so that the government is able to capture all the data appropriately. Additionally, please note that once e-invoicing is applicable to you as a taxpayer, please note is applicable to you only for B2B transactions. Correct? So, what the government is saying, only it is applicable to entities who are having turnover above 500 crore. And second important thing is only for B2B transaction. That means if a company is having both the transaction B2B and B2C, correct, then you need to issue e-invoices only to B2B transactions and not for B2C transactions. This is one important thing. And in days to come, it might become applicable. But as of now, as if the law stands, you are not expected to issue in case of B2C transaction e-invoices. Many of the time, people ask, what about government related supplies? I am a supplier who is issuing to government various invoices. Should I also be registered for e-invoices? If my turnover is more than 600, 700 crore? Answer is yes. And you are expected to issue even e-invoices to government. And what is the reason? Because I think all of you are aware that even the government departments are registered for the purpose of GST. So it would be as good as a B2B transactions. Friends, then you will say, what about exports, import, and domestic supplies? Whether e-invoicing is applicable? I think all of you will agree. In case of all B2B domestic supplies, e-invoicing is applicable. Even in case of export, e-invoicing is applicable, including deemed export. In case of export, please note, because the customer is located outside India, he would not be registered for GST. But still, e-invoicing as a concept is applicable in such cases, and you will be expected, instead of mentioning the GST number, you are expected to mention URP in the respected data column. Friends, with respect to import, I think all of you are aware that we are expected to file a bill of entry, because in case of import of goods, a bill of entry is already generated at custom port. And that's the reason right now e-invoicing as a concept is not applicable to imports transactions. Friends, now many one of you would be having a doubt regarding the reverse charge mechanism related invoices, because under section 31, not only you are expected to issue invoices for forward charge supplies, but also in case of reverse charge supplies. For example, if a company is receiving legal services, GTA services, they are expected to pay tax. And so, friends, let's move on. How this e-invoicing process would be, and to understand that, I think first let us understand what is the process which we are following right now. Correct? I think before e-invoicing is introduced, I think all of you will agree that this is the typical process which any business will follow. That is, you will discuss with your proposed customer. Correct? The customer will sign the agreement or purchase order. Then, before supplying the goods or services, you will create or raise the invoice. If you are supplying goods, you will also generate a e-way bill. After month end, you will file your GSTR1. On 20th, you will file your GSTR3B. After the year finishes, you will file your annual return. After that, you will also carry out your GST annual audit, correct? GSTR99C. And then you will submit the data if the department is asking for GST audit purposes, correct? Because I think all of you are aware that even GST authorities can come for audit. So this is the typical flow of the transaction which is expected to take place before e-invoicing is introduced. After e-invoicing is introduced, the transactions, that is 8 transactions, will remain as it is. But these 3 new steps will get added. That is, you are expected to create a JSON file and upload. Then you are expected to receive back that JSON file, because you will get a QR code and IRP. And you are expected to print a QR code and, if possible, IRN number on your invoices. So basically, step number 3 and 4 is just communicating or uploading certain data or details on the government portal. And if the government portal says, okay, the data is fine, which you are submitting, the data of invoices which you are submitting on the government portal, if it is fine, the government portal is expected to give you a IRN number or QR code. And this QR code you are expected to print on your tax invoice, and then you are expected to issue this invoice to the customer. So this is only the change, if you ask me, from the current or old invoice process and the entire transaction which typically happens with your customer. This is the only change, and that too only with respect to B2B transaction. As far as B2C transaction is concerned, as we discussed, the transaction continues as it is, because for B2C transaction, e-invoicing right now is not applicable. Friends, the next question which will come to your mind would be basically who is expected to generate this e-invoice. I think all of you are aware it when it comes to e-way bill, right now a supplier, recipient, or even a transporter can generate a e-way bill. But when it comes to e-invoice, typically only a supplier is expected to issue an invoice, nobody else. Although the government in special scenario, that is in case of e-commerce operator, they have enabled even e-commerce operator, but typically if you are not e-commerce operator, then please keep in mind that only and only a supplier can generate a e-invoice and nobody else. Now I will say, okay, as a supplier, how should I generate? So friends, the practically the process of raising of invoice in your books of account or accounting record will continue, or ERP will continue as it is. That is, you are expected to capture all the data which is required for the purpose of raising of invoice in your accounting and ERP or whatever tool you are using, correct? After that, you are expected to create a JSON file with all the data which the government is asking, correct? And this JSON file, basically, you can even create in the government given bulk facility. So government has also given a tool to you in which you can capture all these details. You can also do a direct API integration, and you can also do integration through a GSP. And obviously, you can also use Zoho product as well for raising up e-invoicing. So once you submit this data in the JSON file, what will happen on the government portal? You are expected to upload this data. And as we discussed, that once the government portal validates, carries out certain validations, the government portal will generate IRN number, QR code, and the IRP, that is the invoice registration portal, e-invoice portal, will sign that e-invoices digitally, and it be sent back to you only as a supplier. And what you are expected to do now, this QR code which is there, which is being received by you, this QR code you will have to convert into a picture format, and you will have to use it or print it on your tax invoice. Friends, please note, under Rule 46, all of us are expected to issue a tax invoice, correct? The only change after e-invoicing is that you are expected to add this QR code on your tax invoice. That's it. That is the only change, practically, if you ask us, correct? But please note that this QR code has to be printed on the first page of the tax invoice. Second important thing is, once this QR code is generated, and if you are going to issue a print copy to your customer, then this print copy ideally should be issued by a laser printer or inkjet printer, correct? If you are using that old dot matrix printer, then this QR code would not be legible, correct? And that's the reason you need to be a bit careful even with respect to printed copy. Also, this QR code would be typical in the size, if you ask us, typically 2 by 2 size, very a small but readable size, it should be there. Now, many one of you would be having a question, what is IRN number and what is QR code? Friends, IRN number, I think all of you are aware that it is a 64-digit hash number, correct? Which is generated by using the GSTN number of the supplier, year, document type, etc. Correct? And this QR code is basically nothing but this barcode. I think all of you would have seen. So it is something like barcode only. So if you scan that QR code, you will be able to generate certain details. When it comes to IRN number, please note IRN number is a number which is going to be unique throughout India in that particular financial year. And once IRN number is generated, practically it means that you have communicated this invoice to the government. And that's the reason not only your customer will rely on that particular invoice, but even bankers, transporters, everybody are expected to rely on that invoice because you have communicated that transaction to the government. And that's the reason this IRN number, I think in days to come, become very important before you issue the invoices to the customer. Friends, as regards QR code, as all of you are aware, that QR code is basically a picture, correct? It's like a barcode. And please note that one of the details which QR code is going to generate is also IRN number. And that's the reason, even if you are mentioning only QR code on your tax invoice, it is more than enough. You are not expected to add QR code plus IRN number. Why you are not expected to add IRN number again? Because QR code already has IRN number as one of the particulars, correct? And that's the reason if you are mentioning QR code, it is more than enough. But there might be few taxpayers, they will say that I would like to add IRN number, acknowledge number, any other number. So they are more than free to do that. But practical, the law is asking you to only mention QR code. Friends, you will now next question you will be asking is basically what are the parameters, particulars, what are the content we are expected to add in the e-invoice format. So friends, there are more than 130 contents which are expected to communicate with the government, but please note that all 130 will not be applicable. Around 40-50 one can say on an average would be applicable for any given taxpayer. And what are these contents which you are talking about? Basically, the contents would be your name, your address, your GSTN number, name of the buyer, GSTN number of the buyer, tax amount, quantity. All these details are there, which are typically considered to be mandatory. Additionally, the government has also given you certain fields which are typically mentioned as optional field. If you'd like to add all these details, you can add in the invoice. Otherwise, you can continue with the mandatory fields itself. Please note, when you are going to generate a JSON file using government bulk facility or any other tool, you will have to ensure that the invoice number, correct, or all the formats of the data need to be in a particular format. For example, the invoice number cannot start with 0. That is, it cannot be 001. It has to start with 1. Why? Because humans can understand typically 001 and 1 means 1 only, but machines consider 001 and 1 as separate numbers or separate digits. And that's the reason we need to be a bit careful that we are submitting all the details which are asked by the government in the format which the government has given and not in any other format. Otherwise, anyways, it is going to generate error. And that's the reason be a bit careful when you are issuing e-invoices. If your e-invoice contains and everything is final, typically this is how your e-invoice is going to look like. This is the QR code which we are talking about. On the side, you can see this dot dot, correct? And if you use your mobile phone, even a normal QR code scanner will be able to generate all the 8 details which we mentioned. And that's the reason when this invoice is issued by you, even when the goods are in transport from one city to another, and if the authority or officer is checking this particular invoice, if the transporter only shows this e-invoice, practically the officer by using his mobile would be able to understand whether this the goods and the document is valid or not. And that's the reason this importance of invoicing is going to go up in days to come. Friends, all of you are aware that typically in case of printed invoice, there are certain requirements as to how many invoice copies you are expected to issue to the recipient. There is one copy for recipient, one copy for transporter, and one copy for supplier. This is the rule for goods, and for services, there is one copy for recipient and one copy for supplier. But if you are issuing e-invoice, this requirement of issuing 3 copies or 2 copies would not be applicable to you. So practically you can ignore this. So that is, you are only expected to issue one e-invoice. There is no need that is invoice for transporter, e-invoice for customer, something like that. There is no need for the same. Now you will say, okay, I have generated an e-invoice, the e-invoice which we saw just in the previous slide. If I generated that e-invoice, what will happen next? So what the government is saying that once you submit this data with the government portal, that is e-invoice portal, all this data the government will also submit or share with the e-way bill portal. And in e-way bill, I think all of you are aware there is part 1, part A and part B. So typically the part A will get auto-populated. Almost all the contents would be there because they will be fetched from e-invoice portal. As far as part B is concerned, wherein you are going to add the vehicle details, if you have added it at the time of raising of e-invoice only, then naturally even part B will get auto-populated. If not, then you can add that and you will be in a position to generate e-way bill also. Additionally, once this data is transferred to e-way bill, even this will be transported or transferred to GSTR1 also. So many of your table, be it 4A, 4B, 4C in your GSTR1, 6A, 6B, 6C, 9B, table 12, all these details are going to be auto-populated based on your e-invoice data. But please note, it doesn't mean that your entire GSTR1 would be prepared from 1st of October. Why? Because only for B2B transaction, e-invoicing is applicable. If you are also engaged into B2C transaction, that data you will have to anyways add in the GSTR1. Friends, once this e-invoice is generated, typically you will be having a question, can I cancel? Because it might happen that you have raised the e-invoice for a particular customer, you have generated IRN number QR code, and suddenly customer says, I want to cancel the transaction. So what you are expected to do? What the government is saying that once you generate a e-invoice, only within 24 hours you can cancel it, correct? So obviously it will never ever be deleted from the system, it would be only cancelled. So the government will know how many invoices you are raised and how many you have cancelled. Now you will say, if within 24 hours if I don't take action, then what? If within 24 hours if you don't take action, then there is only one way for you to cancel that invoice, that is by way of GSTR1, correct? Additionally, please note that if you have generated a e-way bill, if you have generated, because you will generate e-invoice and after that you will also generate e-way bill. If you have generated e-way bill, then practically you will have to first cancel e-way bill, then only you will be in a position to cancel e-invoice also. Additionally, friends, if you generate a e-invoice on a particular invoice number, for example, I have generated a e-invoice on say invoice number 123. Now this invoice which I have generated, that is on 123 number invoice, I have generated an e-invoice. And if I cancel that e-invoice, then for this 123 invoice, I cannot generate again a e-invoice. I will have to cancel this invoice also. And maybe for 124, 125th invoice, I can generate e-invoice. So that's the reason, be a bit careful with respect to cancellations. Additionally, friend, the government has issued numerous FAQs on e-invoicing. Certainly, you can go through the same whenever the time permits. Even the government has clarified with respect to transportation. Typically, e-invoice would be required during transportation, but the government is expected to notify this particular aspect in days to come. Further, many people are asking about exports. So even for exports, as we discussed, e-invoicing would be applicable. But at the same time, we believe that from 1st of October, e-invoicing as a concept might create certain challenges for suppliers as well as recipients. So let us understand what are the challenges which are likely to crop up for all of us. So typically, all of you are aware that if your business is more than 500 crore, it is very unlikely that a company of 500 crore is going to get into a tax evasion. So typically these companies that is above 500 crore companies will never ever get into tax evasion. And that's the reason all of you will find that it appears to be very harsh on the government part also to initiate invoicing concept with companies who are above 500 crore, that too in a hurried manner. And that's the reason we believe that it would have been a bit much better that if the government had given some relaxation, at least for a couple of weeks or months, for the taxpayer. But obviously, having said that, I think right now, because of time limit being very less, we should not discuss about the extension. We should always be prepared for the same. And additionally, yes, it will also lead to increase in compliances for most of the taxpayer. Why? Because there is a website gst.gov.in for filing of GST returns. There is a website ewaybill.gst.gov.in for e-way bills, and now for e-invoicing there is a third website. So practically for the taxpayer, there's additional one compliance, one more compliance. Many of the taxpayers are saying that if e-invoicing is applicable to me, why e-way bill should continue? Correct? But the government is saying that in days to come, they might consider cancellation of e-way bill, but they are saying that let e-invoicing be applicable to everybody, then only they will consider that option. For the time being, they will continue with both. Additionally, friends, e-invoice is also going to create one more reconciliation for all of you. That is, if you are a company who is above 500 crore, then typically you will have to maintain a data of reconciliation as to how many normal invoices you have issued and how many e-invoices you have issued. Similarly, for the purpose of purchase also, you will have to maintain data as to how many normal invoices you have received and how many e-invoices you have received. Additionally, how many IRN number you have generated, how many e-invoices you have cancelled, how many e-way bill you have generated, how many e-invoices you have generated, correct? All this data and reconciliation you will have to maintain. Further, many of the taxpayers are saying that what if in my factory, if electricity is not there, if there is no internet connection because of something, ERP is down, if website IRP is not working, if there is a flood calamity, what should I do in such cases? The government is yet to clarify on this particular aspect. I think we need to gear up for e-invoicing at the earliest. To gear up for the, I think you need to coordinate well with all your internal teams so that you are geared up for e-invoicing. Friends, please note as we discussed that if you are on a borderline, that is your turnover is 490, 480 crore, and if you decide that e-invoicing is not applicable to you, and you move ahead and subsequently you find out that e-invoicing was applicable to you, in such cases, it will create huge challenges for the recipient. That's where be a bit careful before you decide whether e-invoicing is applicable to you or not, particularly in case of borderline cases. Friends, additionally, as a recipient, assume that your turnover is only 200 crore. Assume that, and let us say e-invoicing is not applicable to you. But please note, as we discussed in the initial slide itself, that as a recipient also there is a onus, there is a responsibility that you will have to ensure that you are receiving appropriate invoices from the supplier who are expected to issue them. That is companies who are above 500 crore. That's the reason keep a track of all such supplier as to whether they are issuing appropriate invoicing or not. Additionally, in days to come, whenever there is a GST audit, the department might ask you copies of the invoices. So keep or maintain those invoices appropriately. Further, you might initiate discussion with all your vendors. You might send a courtesy email to them asking whether e-invoicing is applicable to them or not. Because if it is applicable to them, you will have to check whether they are issuing e-invoices or not from 1st of October, and also e-credit note and e-debit note, correct? Otherwise, all those documents may not be considered as valid document, and that's the reason you need to be a bit careful with respect to your vendors also. And friends, with this we are through with our session on e-invoicing. Now what we will do, we will request team Zoho to take us through the demo, and after that we will open the floor for question and answers.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I'll request Gayatri to take over control and start the demo process for us.
Hello everyone, I'm Gayatri and I'm going to show a live demo of how e-invoicing works in Zoho Books. So Zoho Books is an accounting software, it is cloud-based, and let's see how e-invoicing works there. As we all know, e-invoicing or an electronic invoice is a digital document exchanged between a supplier and a buyer to ensure that a common format is followed across all businesses so that invoices can be uploaded to the GST portal in a common format. So let us see how e-invoicing works in Zoho Books. Before you start e-invoicing in Zoho Books, you need to register with the invoice registration portal to send the invoice details. To do this, you have to register Zoho Corporation as your GST Suvidha provider in the IRP website and set up the username and password for the portal. In Zoho Books, the option to enable e-invoicing can be found under Settings, Preferences, e-invoicing, and you'll have a Connect Now option. Now it has been configured here, but in general, when you click on e-invoicing, you'll have a Connect Now option. When you click on the Connect Now button, you'll be prompted to enter the username and password that you used while registering Zoho Corporation as your GST Suvidha provider in the IRP portal. Once you enter your username and password, you can save and validate. Now that you have connected with the portal, you can push invoices, credit notes, debit notes to the IRP portal. I'll just quickly brief you. If you've already connected to the IRP in Zoho Books, you can also create e-wables directly from Zoho Books. You would have connected your organization with the e-wable portal if you're using Zoho Books. And the same credentials can be used to log into IRP as well. So Zoho Books will automatically use your e-wable portal credentials to connect with your IRP. Now let us see how to configure the user permissions. Now that you've connected Zoho Books to the e-invoicing portal, you can configure which of your organization users should have e-invoicing permissions. To do that, you'll have to go to Settings, click on Users and Roles. You can move to the Roles tab, edit an existing role, or click on a new role. And you can give a role name. And you'll have to scroll down to enable the push and cancel transaction option. Now let us see how to create invoices. As we all know, the government has mandated a set of fields that are required for e-invoice. All these mandatory fields will be available in Zoho Books. We would get all the mandated information from you at multiple levels, right from creating the master data, such as customers, items, etc. Some of the data are available when creating new invoices. Other mandatory fields will be available for that invoice if you've already entered them in Zoho Books, as I mentioned under items, or while creating the customer. Now let us see how to create an invoice. I'm clicking on invoices here, and please go to the invoice module, click on new, select the customer name, add your item, and save it as draft. So once you save it as draft, you'll be able to see that the mandatory fields such as the seller's legal name, GSTIN, address, the buyer's address, GSTIN, and transaction details such as the invoice number, invoice date, and the item details such as the item type, HSN SAC, and the GST rates are mentioned in the invoice. Now that the invoice is created, the next step is to push the invoice to the IRP portal. So once you'll be able to see that the invoice will be in draft status once you have created it. All your invoices in the draft or approved status alone can be pushed to the IRP portal. If you have enabled multi-level approval, then the invoice can be pushed only after it's been approved by the final approval. So let us submit it for approval. You can see that the status has been changed to the approval is pending. Let us approve this invoice. Before sending an invoice to the customer, you have to push it to the IRP portal. So you'll be able to see an option here, push to IRP. So once we click on push to IRP, the invoice details will be sent to the IRP portal. So you can see that the invoice is pushed now, and an IRN and a QR code has been generated. You can also send multiple invoices to the IRP website. So you can click on the filter here, scroll down, select on yet to be pushed for e-invoicing, and select the invoice in bulk. And when you click on more, you'll have an option to push it to the IRP portal. You can choose to display the IRN in the template by enabling it in the invoice template. You can go to settings, scroll down to templates, keep it in the invoice template if you're using it in invoice, edit the invoice template. You'll be able to see various options such as template properties, headers, item table, etc. Now I'm moving it to footer, where you can enable the e-invoicing details such as show QR code and show IRN. Once I enable it and save it, the QR code and the IRN will be displayed in the invoice. Now you'll be able to see that the QR code is already attached to the invoice and the IRN is also displayed. So canceling the invoice within 24 hours can be done in Zoho Books. And after 24 hours, there is a step-by-step process. I'll explain you how it's done. So if you're canceling an e-invoice in Zoho Books within the first 24 hours of generating an IRP, then it will be canceled in both the IRP as well as Zoho Books. So you'll have an option here called cancel e-invoice. You can click on the cancel e-invoice option, select the reason. So I'm selecting a reason and I'm entering the remarks and I'm clicking on cancel the invoice. Now, since we've canceled the e-invoice within 24 hours, it will be cancelled in both Zoho Books as well as the IRP portal. After 24 hours of pushing an invoice to the IRP successfully, the IRN generated will not be valid. So cancelling in Zoho Books will not cancel it in the IRP automatically. So what you can do is you can come here to Zoho Books, mark the e-invoice in Zoho Books as cancelled and go to the GST portal and mark the cancel the IRN manually. Once you do that, your invoice will be both not valid in Zoho Books as well as the IRN portal. Let us see how the preferences are available for recurring invoices as well as estimates. So we have an option, you can directly configure it here. A lot of businesses will first create an estimate, convert it directly to invoice. So here you can configure according to your business requirement. So you can either give it as no, you can give it as create invoice and save it as draft. So the invoice will be automatically created, save it as draft, and the process which we saw earlier, right, where we push it to the portal, that can be carried forward. You can also set it as create, auto approve, and then push the send invoices. So the invoices will be sent and auto approved. It will be pushed to the portal and then sent to your customer. Now this is the estimate preferences. Let us see it for the recurring invoices as well. For recurring invoices, we have three different preferences. One is you can create the invoices as drafts and then you can review it and then send them to your customer for payment. The second is create, auto approve, push and send the invoices. So invoices will be directly auto approved, pushed to the IRP and then sent to your customers for payment. The third option is create, auto approve, charge, push and send invoices. So using this option, the invoices will be auto approved, associated payment will be charged automatically, and the invoices will be sent to the IRP and then to your customers. If the invoice is sent, you'll be receiving a success notification message, and if it's failed, you'll receive the payment thank you message along with the reason for failure. If you have any further queries regarding e-invoicing, you can drop us an email or reach to us on our toll-free support. I'm passing over it to Robin now.
Hello, thank you so much for your demo, Gayatri. Now I'll pass off the session to Preetham sir for the Q&A part. So if you have any questions, please ask the questions in the questions tab. So Preetham sir can answer it for you.
Yes, friends, so there are a few questions which participant have asked. So for example, Mr. Bensi Thomas is asking, we have turnover below 50 lakh and that too all our export is basically transactions are export, whether we can adopt for e-invoicing. So friends, as of now, please note that if your turnover is below 500 crore, then the government has not given an option for you to choose it, because the government website or portal has certain restriction. They are saying that if you are above 500 crore, then only it is applicable. If you are below, then you are not given a choice to choose. Correct? So you cannot opt for e-invoicing. So practically, if your turnover is below 500 crore, there is no option available to you. The government has said that in the last 3 years, if your turnover has crossed 500 crore, then also you can opt for e-invoicing. But they are talking right now about that threshold. Why? Because they are saying let us stabilize as a government with e-invoicing for large taxpayers, and then they will make it open for all the smaller taxpayers as well. So right now, no choice is given to smaller taxpayers. For B2C invoicing, please note, as we discussed, e-invoicing is applicable only for B2B transactions. For B2C transactions, there is a concept of dynamic code which is introduced by way of a separate notification. But please note, this concept of dynamic QR code is not applicable for it is not related to e-invoicing. So there is no worry. We need not worry about the same. That is, you need to only worry about B2B transactions. So somebody is saying that his business is a startup and they have done transaction which is around few crores, but it is much lesser than 500 crore. Can we choose? Again, the answer is no. You cannot choose, as we discussed. It is only given as the mandatory requirement is if you are above 500 crore, then only applicable. If you are below, like say 5, 10, 20 crore, then no choice or option is made available to you to choose for e-invoicing. Aggregate turnover, friends, as we discussed, that the concept of aggregate turnover is given under section 2 subclause 6 of the GST law. It talks about not only your turnover with third party customers, because what happens in your financials, your typically all the transactions or turnover will be captured, correct? Let us say your turnover is 480 crore. But at the same time, please note under the GST law, if you are having a separate branch which is outside the state, so your presence, your main company is located in Maharashtra, but you also have a branch in Gujarat, you also have a branch in Karnataka. Under the GST law, if you are making supply of goods or services to those branches, under the GST law, that supply is also considered to be a taxable supply. And whatever supply or turnover you are having between your distinct person, because the GST registration number which you are having under the same PAN number, but you are obtain a separate GST registration number in different state, that would be considered to be a distinct person. So all that turnover you will have to add, and then you will have to come out to a conclusion, what is my turnover, correct, for GST purposes. If it is crossing 500 crore, you will have to opt for e-invoicing immediately. With respect to reverse charge, as we said, for reverse charge mechanism invoices, e-invoicing is not applicable. So I will give you example. I am a lawyer, correct? I am a lawyer, and as all of you are aware, if as a lawyer I am supplying services to say Infosys or any other company, correct? When I am supplying services to another company, typically that recipient is expected to pay GST under reverse charge mechanism. So for a recipient, this exemption has been given that when the recipient is paying GST under reverse charge mechanism, he is also expected to issue a normal invoice, and that is a self invoice to himself, correct? And this self invoice has been given exemption right now. You can say that is, you are not as a recipient, as a company, when you are paying GST under reverse charge mechanism, you are not expected to comply with e-invoicing as a concept. But as a supplier, that is as an advocate, this concept might be applicable if your turnover, let us say it is more than 500 crore. Then aggregate turnover we already discussed. Once e-invoice is raised by you, once 24-hour time limit has crossed, then as we discussed, you can make amendment, but you will have to make amendment in your GSTR1. So for example, you can issue a credit note, but that will be recorded in GSTR1. As we said that, see, if your turnover is below 500 crore, then you need not worry, because e-invoicing you are not expected to issue on the income side. But what you need to worry, you need to worry about your invoices which you are receiving from various vendors, and that's the reason carry out a vendor due diligence to understand whether all these vendors are issuing e-invoices to you or not, if it is applicable to them. That is one. Second, even in your accounting records, even in QuickBooks, what you need to do, try to make out a list of all the vendors who are expected to issue invoices and other than invoices, so that whenever somebody or GST authorities are asking you the details about the same, you are readily having those details, correct? So in your vendor details, you can capture this one additional field, whether the vendor is expected to issue e-invoice to you or not. Hemaji is asking about pro forma invoice. Friends, please note, under the GST law, there is no concept of pro forma invoice. So naturally, I think we are not expected to issue any pro forma invoice whatsoever. Urviji is asking about automation of e-invoicing. Certainly, automation is the only solution under e-invoicing. Otherwise, every time you are generating a e-invoicing, you will have to go log into the portal and then submit it by way of a tool and all that. It is going to be a painful process. Much better to automate it, and certainly Zoho team will help you with respect to the automation. Yes, Ganeshanji, you are also expected after generation of e-invoice. If you are supplying goods, you are also expected to generate an e-way bill also. But please note, in the e-invoice itself, the government is saying, if you provide all the data which is required for generation of e-way bill, for example, the vehicle details and all, if you mention in the e-invoice itself, then typically your e-way bill will also get generated. So you are not expected to follow two steps. So friends, with this, we are through with all the questions also. So we thank you all for joining. We will request you to give your feedback also in the chat box. If you enjoyed the session, please mention that. If you like the session, if you like to repeat us the session, please share the same. Can we push all the transaction for a month at the end of the month? Subodha Patraji, basically, see, please understand that before you issue a invoice to the customer, you will have to have a QR code and IRN number. And that's the reason at the time of issuance of invoice, you will have to generate a e-invoice. That is, you will have to communicate with the government portal. So you cannot do that process at the month end, correct? So you will have to generate, whenever you are expected to give a invoice to the customer, it has to be an e-invoice. That is, along with the QR code. So you'll have to do it on a real-time basis whenever you are issuing a invoice to the customer. What about suppliers or customers of the entity that need to follow? So as we said, as a supplier, if e-invoicing is not applicable, don't worry. As a recipient, correct? If you are buying goods from B2B vendors, just check whether they are expected to issue or not. Correct? That's the due diligence which you'll have to follow. So practically, e-invoicing, although on your income side it is not applicable, on your expenditure side, I would say e-invoicing is applicable to all the companies in India right now. How to take print of e-invoice? So typically, please note, the customer of yours, correct? So if I am your supplier and my turnover is 800 crore, I will issue an e-invoice to you with a QR code. And I might, so this would be converted by me in either I will issue a PDF copy or I will issue a print copy. So if I issue a PDF to you, you can pre-print it. And also, if you are a supplier on the government portal, also you can print or take a print of e-invoice. But please note, if you do that, then your logo and all will not be added. And that's the reason you are expected to download the JSON file with QR code, convert that QR code into picture, and then take a print in your system itself. Can I give e-invoice to Goji general customers? Means I am saying only to a B2B customer you can issue e-invoice, not to anybody else. Below 50 lakh turnover, e-invoicing is not applicable. No, customer cannot ask you. So somebody is mentioning that if customer is asking, then what should I do? Customer can't ask. You can tell them the law. Law of the land is only above 500 crore e-invoicing is applicable. Mr. Atul, you can find out whether the turnover of the customer, so vendor, is above 500 crore or not on the government portal. And we will give you in the in the presentation which you are going to share, there is a link which is given. So you can go to e-invoice, this web one gst.gov.in website, and there is a tab, and you can find out based on GST number, if you are having GST number, whether e-invoicing is applicable to that particular vendor or not. Dynamic QR code, Mr. Pradeep ji, it is a separate concept. We will only discuss QR code, which is with respect to invoice. So because we are discussing only about e-invoicing, we will skip this part of dynamic QR code, which is with respect to B2C transaction for the time being. Yes, with respect to export transaction also, e-invoicing is applicable if your turnover is above 500 crore rupees. And because the recipient is outside India, he will not have a GST number. There you will have to mention GST number as URP, that is unregistered person. Mr. Ganeshan question is already answered, that you will have to create a e-way bill. If you haven't given the details in the e-invoice, then you will have to generate e-way bill also. And as we mentioned, that e-invoice data would be pushed to e-way bill portal also. So part A would be auto-populated. You add part B and you will get the same. Presentation copy, certainly it will be shared with you. Advance receipt, payment voucher, receipt voucher, for all these things, e-invoicing concept is not applicable. For import supplies, as we discussed, in case of import, bill of entry is applicable, not e-invoicing. So thanks, Chetanji. We are very happy that you enjoyed the session. You liked the session. So friends, we are through with all the questions, I think, which were there. So thank you all. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your active participation. I think the questions were also very much interesting. So thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks.